How's it going, everyone? This is Soul Singed here, and I know I stopped doing my weekly BattleBots videos, and there's a lot of different things that contributed to that, but such as work and just a bunch of things. So I kind of stopped doing it, and I also was just kind of losing interest in it. But in today's video, I wanted to talk about my top 15 favorite bots from Season 5. Now, keep in mind, these are just my personal favorite bots. This is not a best list. Like, this is not a list grading them on how well they performed. All that matters is I have to personally like them. So, yeah. I will be doing a top 20 worst bots list. It'll include bots from any season. That one will be much more statistic based, like if they were actually effective or not. But that's going to be a separate video, and this video is just my top 15 favorite bots that competed in Season 5. At number 15, we have Fusion. Now, every year, Team Waiachi, they always bring a couple bots to BattleBots, and most of the time they bring a new robot and see how it does. In the past, there's been Warrior Dragon and Warhawk and Falcon, all of which competed one season, didn't do that great, so they just kind of buried them. They found Hydra, struck gold with it, and Hydra seems to be the king of flippers now. But Fusion is an interesting one. It is a horizontal disc spinner, a horizontal spinner and a vertical disc spinner. And yeah, it did make it to the round of 32. Yes, its spinners are very powerful, but they had a lot of problems. They had problems with overheating and catching on fire. The two weapons would cause the G-forces to just, whenever they would hit, they would just spin in crazy directions. I don't know if they're going to bring Fusion back. I feel like, part of me feels like this could work. They just need to get it more dialed in. And I think it's an interesting idea and definitely could be a powerful bot if they could get it dialed in. And at number 14, we have Smee. Now, Smee, this is their first season for this robot competing, and it did not do great. It only won one match. But as the season progressed, they showed improvement. And this is just a super entertaining bot to watch. Really interesting concept, and there's a little bit of promise here. And I feel like this design could work well, dialed in, at least until people realize how to beat it. That's kind of how it goes when someone brings a new design. It works for a couple seasons, and then people start figuring out how to handle it, and then they become less effective. But Smee is definitely a really interesting design. Definitely feel like it could work. Just need to get it dialed in. At number 13, we have Perfect Phoenix. Now, I'm not a huge fan of full-body spinners, which is basically what this is. I like to consider a full-body spinner any spinner where the blade just kind of goes around the entirety of the bot. And I'm also not a huge fan of using older designs because technology, which is a huge part of BattleBots, tech is always evolving. Technology is always changing, advancing, and evolving. But it is really cool to see old designs still be effective, and that is Perfect Phoenix. It also made it to the top 32, did pretty decent, not amazing, not bad. It made it to the top 32. And again, it's an older design that's still effective, and I just love how simple it is. It's just a box with a giant spinning blade on it. It's kind of like a full body spinner version of Tombstone. And an 11-year-old was driving it and did fairly well. He, of course, made some mistakes, like not shutting the weapon down when being rammed into a wall. Little things like that, but I really like this. I like having some old school robots that are still powerful, that are still competitive. So yeah. And at number 12, we have Rusty. Now, I know a lot of people were saying, well, how can you have Rusty as your favorite if he's not good? Well, like I said, they don't have to have performed well, I just have to like them. And everyone loves Rusty, and it's kind of impressive how well Rusty did. Like, Rusty can take a beating for a robot that's literally made out of trash and scrap metal that the guy just found around his farm. It's impressive what he was able to pull off. It's impressive how well he was able to take a beating. Now, we never got to see him use his little, puncturing, jackhammer type device, except for in his first match against Sporkanock. And they credited him KOing Sporkanock with that weapon, but I'm not sure if Sporkanock just died or if his weapon managed to clip through a drive belt or something, because the last time Rusty hit Sporkanock with his weapon, Sporkanock did not move any after that, so we don't know if they just died or if his hammer actually did damage to it. And yeah, I think it's a really cool concept to have a robot made out of scrap, but have it actually be effective. And I feel like Rusty could be a pretty competent bot if it made a few upgrades here and there, and I definitely would love to see Rusty competing in next season. And also, he's got treads. He's got tank treads. I love robots with tank treads. And at number 11, we have Mammoth. Now, when Mammoth first came out, everyone just kind of viewed him as a joke. No one thought it was going to be any good. And I mean, look at it. It doesn't really look like it will be that well. But it is. It's made it to the top 16 this season. It has a pretty powerful spinning lifter that can just kind of bash you around and knock you away. And because of its design being so minimalistic and just being a giant frame, it makes it pretty hard for other robots to hit anything, especially with its forks that are sticking out of the front. Makes it kind of hard to get to the wheels, and it's just kind of like a pain in the neck to try and handle because of how big and empty it is. And next we have Chomp. Now, I used to hate Chomp, mostly because it was just such a weird design. Yes, it always had a super powerful hammer, but anytime it would use its hammer, the bot would go flying, and because they were taller than they were wide, Chomp would just end up getting knocked over. This season, they did not have that problem because they are a 500-pound walking beast. Now, yes, they only won one match, and they were KO'd by an undercutter in their last fight of the main season, but again, I feel like this has potential. This is definitely the best version of Chomp that we have seen so far, and if they can get that little metal band around the legs to be a little more effective at protecting its legs, I feel like Chomp could be a pretty decent robot. And next we have the first Cinderella story, and that is Tantrum. Now, Tantrum's first season of competing, it was a pretty mediocre lifter. I think its only match it won was against Battle Royale with Cheese, and we all know that robot kind of sucks. And then the next season, it came with the weird little punchy vertical spinner thing, and did not do well, and I honestly did not think, I just found that to be a really weird weapon concept, did not think that would have any... I didn't think it would be effective, but this year, they have improved a lot. Like, they have improved so much throughout the course of one season. I mean, look how far they made it. I think they made it to, the top 8 this season, and they are one of the smallest bots in the field, and they're so compact, and it's like a brick. They can take a beating and just keep going, and their weapon has really high speeds, and unlike a regular vertical spinner where whenever they hit, it just has more of a chance of cutting in. With this punching mechanism, they can dig in and damage the robot when they hit, but then with the forward momentum, they can just, almost like a puncher, and just punch them across the box, and it's a really good weapon when it's dialed in like this. And I really do feel like they have a chance at going all the way next season. And then next up we have the other Cinderella story with Jackpot. Jackpot being a rookie bot, and I believe their team is also a rookie. I mean, it wasn't like someone who broke away from another team and built their own bot. These guys were their first time competing in battlebots, period, with the cheapest bot in the field. I think they said it costs less than $4,000 to build, which is insanely cheap for a professional battle bot, and for them to go 3-0 and put up a pretty good fight against Rotator, one of the top tier bots. That's pretty impressive, and I feel like with just a little bit more of a budget, a little bitty tweaks here and there, they could be they could go pretty far. And next we have Kraken, who I believe was the only Crusher who competed in Season 5. And apart from Kraken, the only other really well-known Crusher I can think of that's competed was Petunia, which they're a European team, and very few international teams are able to compete this year because of the pandemic. And yeah, Kraken is another one. It has a pretty powerful Crusher. It has some pretty good control for when they do clamp down. They are able to control their bots and move them around pretty well. And again, Kraken can just take a beating. Like in their match versus Sawblaze, they got one of their wheels taken off and they were down to one wheel, yet they were still able to be mobile enough and move the robot enough to not get counted out. That is insane. And it's good to see in a sport like BattleBots where spinners are so prominent, and it's mostly spinners dominating, to have such a powerful Crusher in the field. And then next up we have Malice, and I really like the idea of Malice. It looks pretty simplified, pretty compact, but its weapon's what I really like. Its weapon looks like it should be a vertical disc spinner, but they've taken that and just put it on its side. So you've basically got this big, chunky, horizontal spinner. And yeah, it has a few issues, of course, but it did pretty well, and this design shows a lot of promise, and I just really like it. I just really like how compact it is and how chunky that weapon is. And then next up we have Ribot, and Ribot is one of a few teams like Tantrum who, sure, they were somewhat competent in previous seasons, but did not look all that amazing. They didn't really have any eyes on them. And this year, they proved that they are a top bot. They proved that they're someone you need to be looking out for. Now, they are a modular bot, but their most used configuration is that undercutter in their picture here. And yeah, I just think they're a pretty good bot overall, and they've also shown that they can have wheels taken off and take a beating and keep on running. And at number 4, we have Bloodsport. Bloodsport is another one who did fairly decent last year, but came through and was the number 2 seed, I believe. They did end up knocked out of the top 32 pretty early. And again, like I said for Perfect Phoenix, I'm not a huge fan of full body spinners, but Bloodsport is just so well driven that they really don't have that issue when it comes to stability or durability. Like they know how to drive a full body spinner, because in several matches you could hear them saying, you know, shut down the weapon, let it cool down, or they see they're being pushed into a wall, shut down the weapon to keep from breaking it, and they just have some amazing driving skills out of Team Bloodsport. And at number 3 we have Valkyrie. Really love their design, really love the color scheme of blue and black. Love that they're just this huge undercutter spinner and one of the most durable undercutter spinners, because they can take a beating and keep on working. And yeah, I just really love their design. And at number 2 we have Witch Doctor. And Witch Doctor is another one of my personal favorites. The last couple seasons they've been improving, and this year they started off kind of rough, but made it to the top 32, did pretty good, did fairly well until they got to Scorpios, and yeah, they have super high speeds, amazing driving, deadly vertical spinners, and they're just overall a top tier robot, and I just really love the whole voodoo witch doctor aesthetic they have.